A pretty scary scene along the Chicago River turns out to be a military training exercise.
There was nothing routine that folks reported about seeing the jarring, as they witnessed the jarring scene of at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters flying at times in close order formation.
Just in, a military drill in downtown Miami, complete with these Black Hawk helicopters, elite soldiers and police officers swarming the street.
Take a look, swing back over here. This may be involved in this training or not. Again, let me tell you what all of this is that we know of. It's a joint military training exercise involving local police, also military.
Sight of Army helicopters and the sound of gunfire created a lot of concern this afternoon in one Houston neighborhood.
There were armed men in fatigues, plenty of weapons, and what many thought were real live rounds.
But Senators McCain and Levin have added this legislation which would authorize the president to declare the entire United States of America, all 50 states and all territories, to be a battlefield, right, even though there's no battle, thanks be to God, going on here.
War on terror is different.
And that would authorize him to use commander-in-chief authority in the United States, to use the military to arrest people in the United States who, in the president's opinion, are enemies of the country.
This is larger ideological ploy by this administration. They're not being authentic with America, whether it's the sequester, health care, or the gun control issue. What they do is they manipulate an emotional crisis, a national emotional crisis, to further an ideological agenda which involves the evaporation, the slow disintegration of your civil rights, your liberties, your ability to live and let live. And it's a disturbing pattern.
Arming police with military-grade weaponry, and now we're seeing that play out in the streets. People in the inner city in the U.S. have been experiencing this. So civilians in the U.S. are now up against basically military-style policing.
Police with guns drawn are searching door to door.
I mean, we had martial law up there. FBI and all these agents coming in, closing things down, going to people's houses.
When the walls of society as we know it come crashing down around us, and they will you be able to protect yourself and your family? I realized without this knowledge, without these critical survival skills, millions of helpless Americans will perish when our country burns to the ground. Will you be one of them? How about your wife, your daughter, or son? When we descend into civil war, when rioting, looting, and desperate killing engulfs every city in America, will you be able to keep your family safe? I'm Chip Foreman, God-fearing husband, father, and former Army Ranger. I proudly served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, but couldn't wait to return home to my family. Military life is not easy, but it teaches you things. One thing it teaches you is discipline. Another is survival skills. We were dropped into some of the harshest and most hostile environments known to man. Not only did we have to contend with the threats of Mother Nature in completely foreign surroundings, but we had to battle with a hateful, venom-filled enemy too. When that happens, you have 2 choices: survive or die. And here's another thing to consider. Our younger generation is in deep trouble. They are sheltered and way too dependent on technology. Have you tried striking up a conversation with a teenager? If so, you probably found out fast that this is nearly impossible. Why? Because their noses are buried in their cell phones 24/7. Their lives consist of texting their friends, Facebooking, or Snapchatting 24/7. Can you picture them in a life or death survival scenario? Now that's a scary thought. Even more terrifying is this fact. Their generation should probably be the one responsible for bringing our country back from total collapse and ruin. I remember when I was a kid, electronics and video games were the last thing on my mind. When the weather was nice, I couldn't wait to pitch a tent in our backyard and camp outside, or wade through the creek looking for crawfish. Sadly, those simple pleasures of being in touch with nature are lost on today's younger generation. If they can't appreciate nature for its joy and beauty, how can we expect them to survive disaster when severed from the digital world? It's our duty as patriarchs to teach this lost generation the skills they'll desperately need to survive an end-of-days event. We need to toughen them up and prepare them for the worst. After all, the future of our country rests in their hands. Now, first you have to know that Ranger training is divided into 3 phases. Number 1 is Fort Benning phase. Number 2 is Mountain phase. And number 3 is Florida phase. Each phase of training was extremely intense, both physically and mentally. But most challenging for me was the mountain phase. For 3 weeks straight, we were split into small groups and forced to survive in fierce and unknown mountain terrain. We faced hunger, dehydration, and sleep deprivation. We had to navigate jagged rocks and suffocating brush. We had to set up camp discreetly in order to avoid bear and mountain lions, with no more than a simple combat knife to protect ourselves. This training pushed my limits every step of the way and tested my ability to maintain composure and sanity. I'm not ashamed to admit that about halfway through, I had a breakdown and had to be reeled back in by fellow Rangers in my unit. I was embarrassed as hell at the time, but I made it through the training and quickly understood why the Army made it so grueling. Looking back, our training was nothing compared to the missions we faced overseas in enemy territory. I can't give away details about our covert missions, but I can tell you that we spent a lot of time hunting the Taliban through the Afghanistan mountains. In 2006, my rifle squad was making our way through a nasty section of the Hindu Kush Mountains outside Kabul. These mountains were brutal. They made terrain from our mountain training phase look like child's play. In certain parts, just one wrong step would mean falling to your death off a cliff. We were performing a simple reconnaissance mission to verify the location of a suspected Taliban stronghold. Current intel indicated no Taliban forces in our immediate area. Turns out that intel was terribly wrong. We suddenly found ourselves smothered by a wave of AK-47 fire from at least 24 Taliban fighters perched on a ledge in front of us. They were about 100 yards out and had a distinct elevation advantage. We quickly scrambled to the nearest rock formation to find cover. After 20 minutes of exchanging intense fire, we managed to execute a flanking maneuver and drive back those crazy bastards. I didn't leave this battle unscathed, though. I took a minor flesh wound on the inside of my right thigh. Had the bullet hit about an inch more to the right, I would have blown out my femoral artery. That was just one of the several close calls I experienced during my Ranger career. Living and breathing this stuff for 6 years allowed me to develop the life-saving survival skills I shared with my family. And now I want to share these skills with you. But before we get to that, let me share with you 3 important lessons for survival I learned while serving our country. Lesson number 1, know your surroundings. When I talk with friends, family, and even strangers, it amazes me how unaware people are of the surroundings where they live or work. For example, do you know if there are any ponds, lakes, or streams near your home? Locating nearby bodies of water is essential for preventing dehydration when a natural disaster or SHTF event strikes. But not all natural bodies of water are safe to consume. Inside my brand new training, you'll discover an easy way to purify water using one inexpensive item you already have in your home. Lesson number 2. Prepare a 7-day survival kit for each member of your family, also known as a bug-out bag. These kits contain essential items for going off the grid and surviving in almost any environment for 7 days or longer. All of these materials should fit into a single large backpack and weigh no more than 35 pounds. At the very least, you'll want to include the following 4 items: a knife, bottles of water, protein bars, and at least 2 ways to start a fire. These are the bare requirements for surviving in the wild. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. I personally have a 23-item checklist for my own bug-out bag, and I share that detailed checklist inside my survival training. No matter what type of crisis you are facing, having a survival kit with specific items will allow you to survive on the move until you can locate additional resources. Lesson number 3. Have a long-term plan and stick to it. It goes without saying that dealing with disaster or an SHTF event can be extremely stressful. In times of crisis and panic, it's not always easy to think clearly and use common sense. But when you have a predetermined plan, you don't have to worry about making tough decisions. All you need to do is act and execute your plan. Once you're no longer in immediate danger, you must focus on sustaining life for the next 3, 6, 12 months and beyond. In fact, many survival experts, myself included, recommend making preparations for at least 2 years of survival off the grid. You never know how long disaster may last, so you better prepare to tough it out for a long time if necessary. This is where having a makeshift SHTF bunker and a stockpile of non-perishable food items can pay huge dividends. I reveal how to create both of these quickly and on a budget inside my elite survival training. If you apply all 3 of these lessons, I guarantee you'll have a solid foundation for surviving almost any disaster. But this foundation alone won't be enough for most people. Now, the fact that you're still watching this video tells me something. It tells me you're smart and well-informed. It tells me you take the responsibility of protecting your loved ones very seriously. It tells me that you understand the threat of disaster is always looming. And it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. In fact, I'm willing to bet you've already done some homework and have started making preparations for surviving an SHTF event. You probably possess many of the basic survival skills needed, even if you don't realize it yet. If war, a terrorist attack, government collapse, famine, or a natural disaster came knocking at your door tomorrow, chances are you'd rise to the challenge and do what it takes to survive in the face of crisis. But now, I have to ask you a question that will probably make you feel very uncomfortable. And it's important that you're 100% honest with yourself here. If you died, what would happen to your family? Please take a moment to really think about this question. If you're out of the picture and your family is left alone to face an SHTF event, are you confident they have the knowledge and skills it takes to survive? I sure as hell wasn't. That's what motivated me to educate my wife and children on everything they need to know to survive any catastrophe, even if I'm not around. As men, it's natural to want to provide for and protect our families. It's our duty to step up and lead the way during times of hardship, danger, and crisis. When it comes to keeping our loved ones safe, we don't think, we just act. It's automatic. It all boils down to simple biology and natural instincts we inherit at birth. But here's the problem with this situation. In the face of terrorism, nuclear war, or rioting, how long do you think your family will last if they are clueless without your presence? Probably not very long. It may sound harsh, but it's a truth we must accept. That's why it's so important to educate and empower your family with the knowledge and skills they need to survive danger and disaster. They need to become self-sufficient. And that's exactly what I share inside my brand new survival training. I will show you step by step how to take the lead and teach your wife, daughter, or son the skills they need to survive any crisis or end-of-days event. As a soldier, I can tell you this. The threat of imminent death is the most powerful catalyst of change that I've ever seen. Impending death can change people drastically, right down to their core in an instant. Relationships that you rely on now for friendship, loyalty, and compassion may quickly vanish during an SHTF event. After all, it's every man for himself. In times like these, the only people you can trust are yourself and your immediate family. That may sound sad, but it's true. I mean, who else is there that could help? The government? You and I both know that's highly unlikely in these troubled times. Now, I'm not trying to get all political on you here. I only bring this up because if you think things are bad now in our country, they're about to get much worse. To many other countries all over the world, the United States is a laughingstock. Our foreign relations are seriously lacking. And from the looks of it, they're only going to get worse. And foreign relations aside, things aren't exactly rosy on American soil either. Granted, the unemployment rate was down to 4.7% in May of 2016, but that doesn't paint the entire picture. Job growth is slowing. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 38,000 new jobs were created in May of 2016. That was a big drop compared to the monthly average of 219,000 new jobs for the previous 12 months. Now, I'm no economist, but that can't be a good sign. Meanwhile, violence and mass murder continues to skyrocket. Just look at the tragedy that occurred in Orlando. 50 innocent Americans had their lives violently taken in the deadliest mass shooting in American history. And each and every time a mass shooting happens, what is our good old government solution? Take away our guns, of course. Are you friggin' kidding me? If just one of those poor souls in that nightclub had a legal and licensed firearm, who knows? Maybe fewer lives would have been lost. Now, I don't mean to be all doom and gloom here, but I am a realist, and I believe in being 100% honest with myself and with you. If there ever was a time to take action and make damn sure you and your family are safe and secure in the face of any SHTF event, that time is now. Did you see that story in August 2015 about 2 U.S. military men subduing an Islamic terrorist on a French train? Spencer Stone was an airman first class, and Alex Skarlatos was a member of the Oregon National Guard. Together they rushed and tackled a Moroccan terrorist armed with guns and a box cutter on a train en route from Amsterdam to France. Their bravery thwarted the attack and prevented potential loss of innocent lives, but they had some luck on their side. It appears the terrorist's AK-47 malfunctioned, allowing the 2 men to close in. Had this not happened, the outcome may have been very different and deadly. Here's the point I'm trying to make. You never know when or where you'll encounter danger. But the truth is, you don't need to have a military background. To eliminate physical threats like what happened on that train, all you need are a few simple but devastating combat techniques trusted by military special forces. Combat and threat neutralization skills were a big part of my military training. And that's one of many things I share inside my new survival course, which I call Survive and Thrive, Spec Ops Survival Skills for Any SHTF Event. I distilled all of the best survival tactics I developed during my military career into this easy-to-follow training course. These strategies kept me alive for years of combating dangerous enemies. They are proven and battle-tested, and I know they will keep you and your loved ones safe in the face of any disaster. Now, if you know anything about Army Rangers, or just about any Spec Ops for that matter, then you know we operate with speed and efficiency. There's no room on the battlefield for complex operations that slow us down. Often, the most successful missions have a simple and straightforward plan. Simplicity allows for faster execution, and the faster you execute these simple survival strategies, the greater your chance of surviving any crisis thrown your way. This is the same approach I used when creating this elite survival training. I knew each and every tactic had to be simple enough for anyone to understand and implement. Men, women, and even older children. If you remember from earlier, this whole thing came about when I realized I needed to teach my wife and daughter essential skills for surviving an SHTF event, even if I wasn't around to take care of them. Now, to be honest, my family members weren't exactly naturals at learning these critical survival skills. At least not at first. Of course, this wasn't their fault. This was completely foreign territory for them. I'd be in the same boat if my daughter tried to teach me why the Kardashians are famous. I still have no idea. But all joking aside, I knew I needed to make everything simple and easy to understand if I was going to pass on my survival skills to my wife and daughter. There was a lot of trial and error during this process, and even more patience. Fortunately, the Army drilled that into me pretty good. But I can tell you this, my patience was pushed to the limits when I was trying to teach my daughter how to catch fish with a makeshift spear. Mind you, my daughter never liked fishing and was always grossed out by worming the hook. So sharpening a branch and jabbing a live fish was proving to be an impossible task for her. After much encouragement from me and what seemed like 100 attempts, she finally succeeded. But then I got thinking, why not just make this easier? After some thought, I came up with an alternative method for quickly catching fish without having to impale them with a spear, and without any of the usual fishing supplies, including hooks. My daughter greatly preferred this method, and to my delight, snagged a fish on her first attempt. From then on, I adopted this approach to every single survival tactic I compiled into the training I'm sharing with you today. I analyzed every strategy, every method, and asked myself, how can this task be done quicker and easier? Now you and your family get to benefit from this simplified approach. You don't have to go through hundreds of hours of frustrating trial and error. You don't have to waste more time researching survival strategies, secretly hoping they'll actually work in desperate times. You don't need a lot of money or resources. All you need is the right information and the desire to keep your family alive and yourself from harm. And God forbid something happens to you, you can rest easy knowing you've armed your family with the skills they need to survive any catastrophe. Investing in this training and teaching it to your family will allow you to fulfill the greatest legacy of all, the gift of survival, something that power and riches can never guarantee. This training is divided into 2 ebooks, one for surviving immediate danger and one for long-term survival with only bare necessities. Together, you'll have a detailed plan for surviving war, terrorism, rioting, rogue law enforcement, natural disasters, famine, and any other SHTF event that life throws your way. You'll learn the skills required to survive in any environment, no matter how remote or dangerous. Here's a preview of what is covered inside Survive and Thrive. Fight or flight. How to know when to hunker down at home or flee to safety. This isn't an easy decision to make, but it's easy to get wrong and cost you your life. After going through the training, you'll never struggle with this decision again. First aid essentials. Each item you must include in your first aid survival kit. You'll also discover what plants can be used to treat cuts, wounds, burns, and minor infections. Know your knives. Not all knives are created equal. Each knife serves a different but critical purpose for your survival. Find out what types of knives you should have in your survival kit and when to use each one. The instant campsite. How to set up a makeshift campsite in rugged outdoor terrain without a tent in less than 1 hour. You'll learn what locations are best for avoiding nature's dangerous predators. The weekend bunker. Creating a basic survival bunker doesn't need to take a long time or cost an arm and a leg. Inside this training, I reveal how to create a bunker large enough for your whole family in as little as a single weekend. Burn all night. Simple tricks for creating a self-feeding fire capable of burning all night long without matches or a lighter. Survival on the sea. Here's something you don't see talked about much. What if you find yourself stranded in the middle of the ocean? You'll learn crucial skills and equipment needed for survival until you're rescued. Transmit distress signals in any environment. When SHTF, you may lose use of tech devices, including your smartphone. I'll show you how to send signals for help in any environment without needing any technology. Sewage safety. This isn't a sexy topic, but human waste breeds disease and infection. During times of crisis, you may not have the luxury of a functioning toilet and sewage system. Knowing where to defecate and how to remove waste safely is essential for your well-being. Equipment checklists for every scenario. You already know about the bug-out bag, but what about important items to stock at home, in your bunker, or an alternative location? You're covered with detailed equipment checklists, so you'll be prepared for any SHTF event. Elite combat self-defense tactics. You probably won't go looking for trouble when catastrophe strikes, but trouble may come looking for you. This could be in the form of a physical assault, home invasion, even a wild animal attack. You'll learn simple techniques for quickly eliminating physical threats. These tactics don't require power or size to be effective, making them a perfect fit for women and children too. Easy water indicators. You can survive weeks without food, but only a matter of days without water. You'll discover how to easily spot nature's indicators for nearby water sources. Fashion your own solar still. Speaking of water, not every source you find in nature will be ready to drink. Stagnant ponds or streams may be filled with harmful bacteria. Fortunately, you'll see how easy it is to create a simple solar still for purifying water. One of my favorite techniques is the 30-second solar still that you can use if you're really in a pinch. Preserve food for years. Discover which foods are best to include in your survival stash and how to preserve them for up to 5 years without refrigeration. You'll also learn how to safely store food in the wilderness. Dine outdoors. Sometimes you need to turn to Mother Nature for sustenance. You'll master which animals are easy and safe to hunt. Find out which insects have the most nutritional value and where to find them in seconds. Nature's GPS. If you find yourself without a compass or GPS, hope is not lost. There are methods for using the sun and landmarks in nature to guide your sense of direction. Stress, your most dangerous enemy. That's right, it's not all about muscle and brawn. When all hell breaks loose, you'll experience stress like never before. Inside this training, you'll receive simple strategies for releasing stress so it can't consume you. If you plan on surviving an SHTF event and keeping your family safe, you'll need to get your mind right. Survival practice scenarios. You can only learn so much by reading. In order to understand these survival skills on a deep, subconscious level, you must practice putting them to use. These practice exercises are simple in structure and designed to instantly reinforce every tactic you learn. By the time disaster strikes, these skills will be second nature to you. This is just a taste of the survival training secrets you'll discover inside Survive and Thrive. You're only minutes away from diving deep into survival tactics normally reserved for elite Army Special Forces. You'll learn practical skills that you can share with your family, guaranteeing survival during any crisis, no matter how horrific. Now I have another question to ask you. How much is the safety of you and your family worth? Tough question to answer, isn't it? Personally, I don't think this is something you can put a number on. I would spare no expense and do whatever it takes to protect myself and my family from danger. And I know you feel the same way. Frankly, the training you're receiving on every page of Survive and Thrive is priceless. But you're probably wondering, how much is it going to cost? Some intensive, in-the-wild survival programs cost upwards of $10,000, which is still a great deal given the lifelong survival skills you walk away with. Other moderately priced survival courses will set you back between $500 to $1,000. Now don't worry, because I'm not going to charge you $10,000. And I'm not going to charge you $1,000. In fact, I'm not even going to charge you $500, which would be an absolute steal given my military background and training. I decided a fair price that most people can afford is just $100. For just $100, you get full access to every tactic, every skill, and every strategy I've amassed during my military career for surviving in some of the most dangerous and hostile environments in the world. Chances are you pay more than $100 every single month just to fuel your vehicle, making today's investment in Survive and Thrive an easy decision. But I have some exciting news for you. If you take advantage of this special offer, you're not going to pay $100. I decided to do something a little crazy to get these closely guarded survival secrets into the hand of every American who needs them. If you act now, you can claim your copy of Survive and Thrive for a low, one-time investment of just $67. I know money is tight and it's not always easy to make ends meet. After all, I also have a family to support with only my Army pension as our primary income. Needless to say, we feel the pinch just like most Americans. But I didn't want cost to keep you from accessing this vital information. So take advantage of this special offer today. Click the Add to Cart button below to receive immediate access to all of my best survival secrets. You and I both know our country is hurtling on a dangerous collision course, rapidly approaching impact. With so much violence, hatred, poverty, racism, intolerance, greed, corruption. From where I'm standing, it's only a matter of time before the walls of society burn to the ground. And in that moment, America will be at its lowest point. Death and destruction will run wild. But from this death and destruction, a new hope will be born. Because in these darkest times, there will be only one direction we can move. Up. From the ashes, we will build a better society, a better America. One that is more just, tolerant, and safe for our future generations. I know you're a good God-fearing person, and that you'd do anything to protect your family from harm. You and I are exactly the type of people that need to be around to rebuild society after all hell breaks loose. This is our responsibility as honest and hardworking Americans. Besides, who else are we going to trust to do this job? Certainly not the government. Take action now and invest in my Survive and Thrive survival training. For less than the cost of a decent dinner out with your family, you'll gain access to elite survival tactics used by Ranger Spec Ops during times of war. Claim your copy of Survive and Thrive now by clicking the Add to Cart button below. Here's a quick recap of what you're receiving inside this special training. Fight or Flight, First Aid Essentials, Know Your Knives, the Instant Campsite, the Weekend Bunker, Burn All Night, Survival on the Sea, Transmit distress signals in any environment, Sewage Safety, Equipment checklists for every scenario, Elite Combat Self-Defense Tactics, Easy Water Indicators, Fashion your own solar still, Preserve food for years, Dine outdoors, Nature's GPS, Stress, your most dangerous enemy, Survival practice scenarios. And if that wasn't enough, I also cover life-saving topics like breathing with plastic wrap if you suffer the misfortune of a sucking chest wound. This simple tactic using plastic wrap can save your life. Condom creativity. Getting it on may not be a priority in the midst of an SHTF event, but condoms can serve many purposes for survival. From water storage to starting a fire, condoms will be your new best friend in times of disaster. The secret fire. Here's a possible scenario. You're being tracked by an enemy in nature, but you still need to make a fire for warmth or cooking food. How do you make one without being detected? There's a special technique for creating small fires that stay concealed and won't give away your location. The King of Guns. I love guns, and I own a lot of them. But if faced with a catastrophic event, there is one gun I would choose above the rest. You'll find out which gun that is and why this is my go-to survival weapon of choice. As you can see, I've left no stone unturned in putting together this treasure chest of survival strategies and training. Right now, you have two choices. You can choose to do nothing and continue living your life the way it is, keeping your fingers crossed that disaster doesn't strike your family at home, but secretly knowing deep in your subconscious that it's only a matter of time. All the while just hoping for the best should an SHTF event come knocking at your door, leaving your fate up to chance. Or you can take action and arm yourself with the skills required to protect your family from any catastrophe, no matter how dangerous. You can sleep well at night knowing that you're prepared for the worst, and have the knowledge it takes to survive, knowledge that 99.9% of civilian population doesn't have. Which choice do you prefer? You already know the answer. But to make this choice even easier, I have eliminated all of your risk. You're protected by my 60-day Ranger's Honor money-back guarantee. If you don't believe the training I deliver is worth every penny, if you don't feel you and your family are 100% safe and prepared for any SHTF event after learning these critical survival skills, then you have 60 days to request a full refund. No questions asked. Just send a quick email to support and I'll personally return every dollar you invested. There's no way of knowing how and when disaster will come for you. But that doesn't mean you have to live in fear. Instead, rest easy knowing you're ready to stomp any crisis into the ground without flinching. Have peace of mind knowing that you took every measure necessary to protect your family and your home. Be proud you took a stand as an American to fight for what is rightfully yours. You deserve this, and so does your family. Click Add to Cart now to secure your copy of Survive and Thrive, and I'll see you on the inside.